Good evening and welcome to Connecting Point. I'm Jim Madigan. Well, what's the meaning and impact of federal efforts to block immigrants from 7 Middle Eastern nations? Supporters say it's needed to keep potential terrorists out of our country. Others say it unfairly punishes many innocent people. Connecting Point correspondent Carolee McGrath spoke with American International College professors Julie Walsh and Gary Lefort to learn more.
I think it was an ill-advised action. I think that it was a preemptive action, and given the scope and magnitude of the order, there was a need for much more consultation with the Department of Homeland Security. There was a lot of, the order itself was very evasive, ambiguous, and there was a lot of confusion around it. So I think it was a mistake in retrospect.
Okay, so the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, put a stop to that. But you have an extensive military background, and I want to thank you, first of all, for your service to our country. You're a combat veteran. You worked for the Department of Defense, Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. Should we be more concerned about who is coming into our country as far as our national security goes?
Oh, I think definitely yes. I mean, if we look at what already happened here in the United States as far as San Bernardino goes, Orlando, another example, you've seen what's happened in Germany, most recently in Berlin, the same thing with Belgium and also France, even the UK. You got to recognize the fact that terrorism could come into this country, at any time, especially considering, the amount of refugees and immigrants that we allow on an annual basis.
How do you balance that, though? How do you balance national security with the pictures that you see of, of children who are washed up on a beach? I mean, these are very heartbreaking pictures that we're seeing, but at the same time, you want to make sure Americans are safe. How do you balance national security with being charitable?
I think that we have gotten a little bit gotten away from sort of the ban on countries or people immigrating from particular countries until now. And we've shifted to more of a high-tech, lots of coordination with police forces in terms of looking at the background of the individual, any criminal history, where they've traveled. And I think that that's a way to try to minimize risk. I think it's probably impossible to eliminate risk and still have an open country.
And as far as the vetting process goes, I know that we're accepting refugees in this area. I think about 51 in this new year, and I've been told that there's a very extensive vetting process. Can there possibly be? Can you get everything you possibly would need on people who are coming from a war-torn country?
Well, I think that's the challenge and that's the difficulties, and I think that's what President Trump was trying to create with his executive order. I agree with Julie that we probably staffed it too quickly because it was a very, very complex subject. But you've got to recognize the fact that the amount of refugees that are coming into the country, we've got to improve our way that we do it. To give you, for example, in the case of the San Bernardino situation, the wife of Farouk, who came in from Saudi Arabia on a passport that we later found out had erroneous information on it that should have been picked up, had not been picked up, and if it had, might have prevented or foiled that incident from happening. So I think the president just taking the position, let's take a second look. Didn't do it on an indefinite period of time. He was talking about roughly, I think, a 60 to 90-day period where we'll look at what we're currently doing and go from there.
Do you think the reaction has been so strong because it's a President Trump? Because President Obama did have similar slowdowns, I know, in 2011 with the Kentucky case, slowing down the process of people coming into this country. Do you think it would have been different if it was somebody else's executive order?
It might have been different. I think that President Trump carries a lot of controversy with him in terms of some of the other things he's said throughout the campaign. So his motives with respect to immigration are a little bit suspect. However, I would distinguish this act from other actions such as President Obama's in that targeted at one country and in reaction to something that had occurred, a
But it
threatening
was
situation.
national security.
It was national security, absolutely. But that has been kind of standard fare and done before. President Carter did it in 1980 with respect to the Iranian hostage crisis. But there were humanitarian exceptions in that case. And I think the sweeping nature of this order and the fact that it was all Muslim majority nations, and then there was that phrase put in the order that people from minority religions coming from these countries would be treated differently. So I think it just it caused people to think this was the Muslim ban that he had mentioned in the campaign.
There will be new developments as this story progresses. What do you think would be something that would be a little bit more acceptable for those Americans who didn't like this one? What do you think would be a better way of him going about it?
Well, I think that there's certainly a need to have some exceptions, some humanitarian exceptions in any proposal put forward. I think that wording with respect to people from a minority religion has to go from it. And I think that the emphasis has to be on a very rapid transition to a better vetting process, so that we're not closing borders or excluding people based on their national origin.
Okay. Julie Walsh and Gary Lefort, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your knowledge on this topic. We could talk probably for about 2 hours on it, but I really appreciate I appreciate you both coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.